Welcome to the Empowering Choices Parenting Podcast. My name is Joshua.
I am Lucas.
And I'm Erik.
Erik and Lucas are licensed professional counselors, and today we're talking about dads and boyfriends manhandling the enemy. Sounds like the boyfriend's trouble.
The boyfriend is trouble. Okay.
Yeah. Well, when is the boyfriend not trouble?
That.
True.
Yeah. Now, and what I mean by it, because, you're going to have a lot of especially mothers who are going to go, are you talking about my son? And the thing is yes.
Yeah.
And if you're a dad and you have a daughter, then every son is the enemy. Mm-hmm. And that's not meant to be in a bad way, but
it's enemy, but not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way. Here's what I mean. In my experience, I have watched so many dads become schmoozed over by the boyfriends of various ages that it took away their objective thinking and the protection they had for their daughters.
I think you're segueing right into your first story.
Oh, am I?
Very.
That was a good transition, wasn't it? Okay.
So this is going to be story time with Erik.
All right.
Story time with me. All right. Okay, here we go. I remember back when I worked in a cookie shop, and we have, a variety of different employees that are in there. And one of them happens to be a high school girl.
And you're how old at this time?
I was 21, 22.
College age.
College age. Yeah. I just come back from a couple of years of college. And so, I'm working there, and she's noticing, we're noticing actually, that there's a particular college guy. He's junior or senior in college.
Like your age.
Right in there, maybe a little older. He keeps coming into the shop. And, he's becoming a regular customer.
Did he really like cookies?
Well,
That wasn't her name.
Yeah, that wasn't her name. He started off ordering cookies and a variety of different things, and then he ended up just coming in multiple times a day asking for her. And it really bothered her a lot. I mean, he would go out of his way and wait to be waited on by her. She didn't like it. She didn't want it. She told him she didn't want, him to be, coming there to see her. We changed her shifts. He would figure out her shifts. It got to the point where he would come in and she would just automatically go on break.
Bye-bye.
And so there was, some protection that was happening there. Well, then he made some kind of a comment about, all right, I'm going to take this a different way. And, nobody really knew exactly what that was. And so then I asked her, is there any chance at all that he could, and this is before you had Google Earth, this is before you had any of the types of Google Maps, anything that could really assist a person in finding out where someone was. And she said, well, my dad is I think he was a major professor in a university. He has, our address, our numbers, they're all, hidden. There's no way he's going to be able to find me. And even if he does, he'll never make it through my dad.
Unless he follows you home.
And so I wonder if that isn't kind of what happened.
You don't know 100% know.
No one knew how, but he did find out who her dad was. He put a lot of work into this.
Wow.
And we didn't see the guy for, probably a couple of months. And
that's a long time.
Yeah. And then he started to come back in. And, so we employed the, hey, you go on break, we'll take over this. The owner had said, I don't want you to be coming around here anymore. And on this, and then she had actually said, okay, that's it. I'm going to quit.
Just to make it go away.
Just to make this all go away. And then we didn't see her for, a couple of weeks. And
so she did quit.
She did quit. She came in to get her last paycheck. And I noticed that there were a couple of people that came in with her, and one of them was that guy. And then there was an older gentleman that was also in there with her. And that guy and the older gentleman were talking, but when observing the conversation, it really seemed like the college-age guy, the guy who had been basically stalking her, was invested an awful lot into the conversations. Almost like you're seeing the body language of someone who's they're really trying to get something out of this and work an angle. And so when I got a chance, I asked her, for a moment if we could talk, and I said, "What's going on?
What the blazes happening?"
Yeah. And her whole demeanor, because she's a very vibrant, happy-go-lucky, intelligent. She was a wonderful young lady, and she was, very dejected. And it's like she was very depressed. And I'm like, "Why is this guy, in here with you?" And she said, "Here's what happened. He found my dad. He found where we lived. He found where he worked. He got in some of his classes, and he has been constantly, at first, in his office for office hours and finding anything and everything my dad was interested in and learning as much as possible about that. And so he's starting conversations with my dad on those pieces."
Wow.
And I said, "Wait, I thought you said he couldn't make it through your dad." And she said, "That's what I thought. But he's made it through. Now my dad is fully behind him dating me. He's my boyfriend now."
Despite her probable, very clear objections to her father.
Yes. And she said, "I went to my dad and I said, I don't like him. I don't want him at our house. I don't want this to happen." And he basically told me, "Listen, he's not that bad. Just get to know him." And she said, That was it. I was done. And she goes, I don't know what's going to happen." And they walked out of the shop, and I never saw him again.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that was going is he was completely angling himself in her life that he would get anything and everything that he wanted in that relationship.
What an absolutely not outstanding, but astounding amount of effort on this man's part.
Everything you see in a Lifetime show,
It's crazy.
All of those types of crazy situations. And at that moment, I thought to myself, if I ever have a daughter, the boyfriends, the boys are always the enemy.
Hence our title.
Yeah. They always have to be seen as the enemy. They can never, ever be my friend until they marry my daughter, and then they will be my son. So you're still not my friend. Okay?
Because your sons aren't inherently your friends.
Exactly.
There's a separate category.
So it completely goes around this whole thing of that you can just come and schmooze me,
Right.
or manipulate me because we're not friends. I mean, even my friends don't have any easy time being able to do that. But the daughter needs to be that primary focus. And, I've loved some of the TV shows and movies that have kind of taken that angle as well as, you're here because of her, and I'm going to be respectful and polite to you, kind of.
This is a completely different take on the same situation. You were telling the story of this father was not protecting his daughter seemingly very well, right? So it's my mom's dad. He's since passed away. So to give you just a little bit of a picture of who this guy was, he lived for almost 50 years on 10 acres. He owned he planted a garden. He owned cows. He owned a tractor taller than he was. And he was a maintenance man at the Oregon State Hospital for a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you would call him, a man's man, John Wayne kind of guy.
Yeah.
But he was not a man of very many words, and definitely knew what he was doing when he took the time to do something.
Right.
So my father, as he is beginning to date my mother, goes to their house. And my grandfather kind of takes him aside and without explanation just shows him some things. Those two things being his shotgun, which he used for pest control on his 10 acres. And what I heard about my grandfather and the shotgun is he didn't use it much, but when he did, there wasn't a gopher anymore. And the other piece of equipment that he showed him was the cattle castration tools that he owned.
Ooh,
He had, owned, and knew how to use.
that'll put some fear in you.
Because he literally owned cattle and he literally needed them.
Yeah.
It was a tool of his trade. But yeah, without explanation, just told my father he owned these things and what they were for and how he used them on the farm and yeah, not any explanation to go along with those things though.
Okay. Well, I think the point kind of got across.
I think
there.
the point got across. Yeah, I remember telling this same story to one of my friends at church, and he's like, "You have to go own some cattle castration tool now. As you're raising daughters."
Yeah.
And I said, I would have no. He goes, "No, you'll have a purpose for them. Just hang them on your wall."
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's interesting about this is, I guess to me, I just always have approached it with that stereotype of that, like every dad's like, hi boyfriend,
Sharpening his knives, cleaning his guns.
And so I haven't really thought about that interesting avenue of a guy essentially befriending the
wheedling
dad.
in.
Yeah, wheedling in like that. And then the dad losing some of those defenses we would think that you would have.
Well, I mean, again, the strategery of the fellow in your story, he was very strategic in his approach.
Yes.
And got around this father's defenses.
Exactly. And we talk about it in the parenting manual that there's a very distinct difference between male and female thinking.
Right.
That it's there from the second trimester on. And men are very conquer-minded, problem-solving, single-focused.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted something, he was going to get it.
Yeah.
When a boy does something, and it can be a little thrilling, it can be a little dangerous, you get to the end of it, and you go, oh my gosh, that was intense. And the first thought that comes to our mind is, what's the next thing? And it's usually a next step up. Girls don't normally have that type of thinking process that happens for them. A boy needs to hit a barrier and be stopped at times. He needs that. It's a part of his socialization. He needs to know that is not a road I want to go down.
Because they might have a shotgun at the end of it.
There might be a shotgun. It reminded me of a man I knew like years ago, and he had 2 twin daughters. And somebody said, "Hey, what's dating going to be like when for you when your daughters are that age?" And he goes, "Oh, I've already got that figured out." And they're like, "Oh, this is going to be good." And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to have them invite any boy they want to date over to the house. And every time they come in to meet me, I will be at the kitchen table cleaning all my guns." Nice. Every single time.
Every single time. Those guns were going to be so clean.
I'm like, exactly. Now, and I had a client, and she was a single mom and with a daughter, and I told her that story, and she goes, "Yeah, I'm not a gun person. Can I do it with knives?" Right. Can the boys come over to the house and meet me, and I'll just be at the table sharpening my knives as I meet them?
Did you educate her about the Klingon batleth that she could have hanging on her wall?
Oh, that's too funny. She would go for that.
What's that? Well, let me tell you exactly how this works.
Exactly. And that's a part of it is that men need to know the boundaries, and they need to know what's happening. You see this in the animal kingdom. You see it especially in the primate area, where a younger primate will go to challenge an older primate, maybe saying, well, he's too senior anymore to be this. And most of the time, the younger loses.
Oh, yeah.
And especially in the gorilla area. So there's something in there that is, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to challenge this until I see what the boundaries are. And then there comes a new form of respect.
Mm-hmm.
But the daughter, his daughter was so...
From your original story?
Yeah, from the original story. So dejected, so unprotected and felt hopeless in that moment. And that's where kind of that title comes from, as they're always the enemy. You can't get to know them and be friends with them because you have no idea how the relationship's going to go. And I've had experience with people who, the relationship was over and they broke up, but a parent was so connected to that other person, they kept inviting them over. Mm-hmm. They kept trying to put them back together, or they kept inviting them over because they enjoyed them. Mm-hmm. And the person is going, why are they doing this? We're done. And I'm like, well, they're not. They created that friendship bond.
And then I was thinking of we're weaving in one of the fundamental principles that we keep trying to talk about of know your kid. Right. At least that would have helped this father in the story that you were telling of tuning into what his daughter was going through. Mm-hmm. And then where was his priorities? It wasn't with her, seemingly. It was with himself, I guess.
Could be. I mean,
right, yeah, unsure.
Here this guy has won him over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. I totally get that you're going to like some of these boys and girls that come into your kid's life. But when it doesn't work out, that's where you've got to have a different set of boundaries. You'll see them, at school functions. You'll see them in the community. Yep. Those are places where, it'd be great to just say, hi, how are you doing? Okay, well, I'm going this way. But then bringing them back into the house, just because now they become your friend, that doesn't work well to help your kids feel that you support the decision that they made. Mm-hmm. And that's an important part of that whole thing.
Yeah. My sister is actually 15 years younger than me. And so I always told her when she got older and she was dating, she was going to have both dad and brother.
Both dad and you.
Yeah. Who's going to be
sitting at the kitchen table cleaning shotguns.
Exactly. And so one time I met a guy and I didn't like his handshake and he didn't talk to me enough. And I'm just but what's funny is I feel like I'm, not old enough to have been a youth pastor 20 years ago, but I worked with kids in church forever. And my sister ended up moving here to where I live. And one day over to family dinner, I see a kid who was in my youth group that I haven't seen for a long time. And he's there with my sister, and they are dating. And so that was kind of fun because we already had a different kind of relationship because I had been essentially in charge of him as a youngster, and obviously everyone's adults now. They ended up getting married, which is great. And
funny.
Yeah, but that was a very cool thing. But here's kind of a question that I'd have for you guys. So you want a guy to obviously love your daughter and be obsessed with her in a good way.
Not in high school.
Well, not in high school. But I'm talking about
that's a different podcast.
Yeah, as ultimately to get married. How do you tell the difference between this person just really loves and likes my daughter and whatever, and then this is no, this is creepy? How do you differentiate between, because there are some guys who I know who, I've seen some really creepy stuff and it's that's weird. Yeah, you don't go sit outside somebody's house and wait to see when they take the trash out. That's creepy.
Are you answering your own question, Josh?
Well, I don't know, but I'm just wondering how do you, as a parent, how do you figure that out? Because I think a lot of parents, especially if you're being cautious, you're like, well, that's weird, but at the same time, you want them to find someone who's going to work. So how do you figure that out? Do you just interrogate them?
Definitely. Yes.
Put them on a lie detector like in Meet the Parents?
Right. Absolutely. Option number one.
That was what the table of guns was, a lie detector. No.
Yes.
So there's going to be a variety of different ways. One is you got to know your child. Mm-hmm. Two, you mentioned you did a handshake with some of your sister's boyfriends and went, no, there's something here.
Yeah.
70% of all communication is nonverbal. Okay, I'm reading that guy and the way that he was talking to her dad, and I'm going, there's something not natural here. Yeah. There's something overly invested, like you're trying, like a salesman.
Like worm tongue talking to the king.
Yeah, exactly. And so your experience as an older individual, as a parent, is going to play a part of this. you want to know your kid, but you want to have a relationship with your kid.
Right.
If you don't have a connection with your daughter and you come up and go, hey, I think there's something wrong here, she's not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
If the shoe was on the other foot, you think there's something wrong and she doesn't.
Right. Exactly. And because a part of being able to, see, is this a person that will be good long-term in my life, is also, what do the people in my family think of this person? How do they see this person? What are the vibes they pick up from this person? What is the nonverbal things that are there? Because especially when you're talking about high school, a lot of those things are going to be missed by high schoolers because they're just learning what social interactions are,
Right.
and trying to understand the difference between a parent-family love and a romantic love, per se. Because there's a base that's the same, and they're trying to be able to piece that together. You have that relationship with your daughter. You can see some things, and then, you might be able to take her out for lunch and just say, can I share some things that I observed? There's some things that I noticed. There's this happened and then this happened. Have you seen this? Because for me and my experience, and go ahead, now you have Google, go ahead and Google these things. They look like red flags for an abusive person. And you've got all these terms, the red flags of a toxic person, all these words are so overused. But it's, I knew a young woman who was, 19, and she got involved with a man who was like 35, and they met at her workplace, and he was not real well liked by the workplace. And one day between he and the manager, he was really, just kind of airing himself out and popping off and had all kind of attitude. And the manager just fired him on the spot. He then looked at the girl, and I'll just call her Sally, and said, Sally, that's it. Let's go. And Sally quit and walked out with him. That's not a good situation. That relationship would have so much of a power differential that she will just walk out with that person. How do you be able to tell that if that person had been close to the family members? They could have said, there's something wrong here, Sally, and they could have been able to help her see that. Does it mean that she'll absolutely receive it always? No. But the better chances you have are with the strength of the relationship that you're continuously building. That will give it a lot of power. Just different girls that I've had in counseling, when they have talked about, here's situations I'm encountering, with boys at school, boys I'm meeting, I've been able to say, that doesn't sound like you. And I've seen them sit there and go, you're right, that isn't me. And it was an entire persona change. All that is coming off of is an hour-a-week relationship that I have built with them. If they're your daughter and you're invested in doing things with them, experiencing life with them, sharing things with them, listening to them, sharing with you, playing games with them, spending time with them, you so outweigh any kind of power that I would have in that situation. They want to hear from you. And yes, that love emotion is going to be in there, but when they know you really love them, care for them, and are looking out for them, once that kind of comes down, they're going to be listening in a way as they're interacting with that person, and they're going to go, maybe mom is right. Maybe dad is right. I didn't see that before. And it's the weight of that relationship that gives you that power in there to be able to say, hey, this is not a good thing. All the guns and the knives and the castoration stuff.
That accelerated quickly.
All the wall decor.
Well, but the thing is, that's just all for you. That for the boy. That's just all to make a mark in the boy's mind. I don't know who this person is. And I don't know. I don't know what they're capable of. If they're going to tell me these things and show me these things, then they're not easy to predict, especially at a high school age, especially at a young adult age. Their minds aren't going to be able to just go, oh yeah, they're just blowing smoke.
Yeah.
Which they may not be. That's
Sure.
the thing,
Right.
you know. And so, I mean, does that kind of help answer that question, Josh?
Yeah, totally. And I think, it's a very interesting topic. And kind of like I said, I think I came into this after reading that title with just the stereotypical, every, dad's gonna whatever. But it's very fascinating to look at how those protection systems can, people can find a way around them, and you really got to keep your guard up. So,
Well, and we're going to take that as a segue because you've got a lovely story that you're going to tell in part 2.
Yeah.
Of how a different approach to that.
Right. A dad and his 2 older sons had an entirely crafted way that his daughter would bring home boys and they would meet the family.
okay, well, we look forward to hearing about that. And like Lucas said, that'll be on our next podcast. But if you haven't taken the time to do it yet, definitely go to the App Store, download our app, just search Empowering Choices Parenting. We have an app and a website that is full of courses, classes, materials. We have a parenting manual, and a lot of the things we talked about today, some of those foundational pieces, they're all in there as lessons. So we'd love for you to take a moment and just check that out and become a member, and we'll see you on the next episode.